What is the transport deduction? When are you eligible for it? And what are its conditions? Join us in today's episode to learn how you could save thousands of crowns each year.
Welcome to the Business Lessons in Denmark podcast, where we answer your business-related questions and provide you with information you might need. My name is Rezső Almási, a new business owner who just recently started my company, Auto Photography, and I'm here with Katalin Balogh, the founder of Cool Accounts APS.
Hi, Rezső. How is it going? Have you bought the new car now?
Hi, Kati. Believe it or not, I still haven't bought it.
Oh.
I'm using my electric unicycle to get around everywhere because the weather is really nice.
Yeah, that's right. Despite the bad reputation of Danish summers, we have been lucky with the weather this year. But have you decided on the license plate for your car? Should it be white plates, yellow plates, or parrot plates?
Unfortunately, I haven't decided on it yet. Of course, this is not my wife's fault. So we agreed that she should use the car and I will figure out my own travel arrangements.
Oh, it's very kind of you to let her have the car.
I think so too. The only thing that bothers me is that I'm missing out on the deduction for using my own car in the company, which we talk about in the episode about white license plates.
Yeah, well, that's quite unfortunate, but I think I have a solution that might reduce your tax base a bit.
I was counting on you to save me. I'm all ears.
There is something called befordringsfradrag or kørselsfradrag in Danish. In English, it might be translated as commuting deduction or transport deduction.
Yes, I have heard about it, but what is it exactly?
It's a deduction typically claimed by employees, but can also be used by business owners. It means that if you travel far to work or for business purposes, you can claim a tax-based deduction. Specifically, if you travel more than 24 kilometers daily between your home and workplace, you are eligible for the deduction.
Does that mean you get the deduction if your workplace is more than 12 kilometers away? So if I go to work and then back home and these two trips together and more than 24 kilometers daily?
Yes, exactly. 12 kilometers plus 12 kilometers is 24 kilometers. So you need to travel more than that. Your workplace needs to be more than 12 kilometers from your home. You might also travel to multiple workplaces in one day. For instance, you might leave your home in the morning to go to the first workplace, like a photography location in your case, then to another, and finally home. If this total distance is longer than 24 kilometers, you get the deduction for the distance beyond 24 kilometers.
I see. So you said that this deduction is for commuting. Does that mean it only applies to work-related travel?
Yes, you can only claim it on days when you travel for work. For example, if you go to a distant location just because you forgot your purse and you want to pick it up, then you don't get the deduction. Similarly, for university students who travel long distances to the university, they are not eligible.
Got it.
And the journey must actually be made. So for employees, on days they work from home, are on vacation, or are sick, they can't claim the deduction.
That makes sense. So the key points are that the journey must actually be made and it must be for work, right?
Right, exactly. That's a concise and precise way of putting it.
But if I understand correctly, is not required to make the trip by car, I can still claim the deduction if I travel by my unicycle to photography locations or the studio.
Yes, one of the best parts of this deduction is that it doesn't matter what mode of transportation you use: car, train, metro, bus, bicycle, on foot, or even your unicycle, you are eligible for the deduction.
That's a great news. What if a friend drives me in their car? So, do I still get the deduction?
Yes, you can still claim the deduction if a friend or your wife drives you.
That's amazing. So, despite having no travel expenses, I still get the deduction.
Yes, because this deduction isn't meant to cover your costs. It is to encourage you to take jobs further away from home. In other words, the tax system rewards those who are willing to travel farther from work instead of staying home unemployed.
I see. That's actually smart. Now, back to the nice weather. My wife and I usually spend a few weeks by the sea during summer, but work doesn't stop. What if I travel to work from our summer house instead of my home?
Yeah, it's possible to stay somewhere temporarily and travel to work from there. The rule is that the distance you actually travel counts, but it can't be longer than the distance from your registered home address. If you travel to work from your summer house, which is closer than your home, you use the actual distance. If the summer house is farther, then the distance from your registered home address counts.
So the tax system doesn't reward me for traveling from my holiday home.
No, not necessarily. I think this is because it could lead to abuse. You can't say you were staying far away temporarily at your in laws or friend's place and traveled to work from there. That wouldn't be verifiable. But your registered address is. So that's the maximum distance you can claim.
I get it. One more question. I don't always take the shortest way to photo locations because my unicycle doesn't handle all terrains. Is that a problem?
No, no, it's not, because the actual distance traveled counts. If you choose a longer route for various reasons, like it's quicker or has fewer transfers, or because your mode of transport requires certain terrains, you count the actual distance traveled.
That's good news. What about the tools for personal errands? Can I stop by the store on my way home?
Personal errands don't count. But if the store is on the way home anyway and doesn't involve a detour, it doesn't matter distance wise.
In my case, it's not on the way.
Okay.
But at least now I have an excuse to skip the daily shopping. But seriously, there is also something else. If often have to travel between home and the studio multiple times a day. For example, I go to the studio in the morning, then to a client meeting in the afternoon, then I go home for equipment, rush to another location, and then back home.
Yeah. If you travel between home and work multiple times a day, all trips count. You calculate the deduction based on the total distance traveled. The deduction applies for distances over 24 kilometers. There are actually two amounts for the deduction, one for from 24 to 120 kilometers daily and another for over 120 kilometers daily. The deduction amount changes every year. For example, this year in 2024, the deduction is 2.23 Danish crowns per kilometer from 24 to 120 kilometers daily. and 1.12 crowns per kilometer over 120 kilometers daily. Additionally, if you cross toll bridges, you can get an extra tax deduction. The amount depends on whether you use your own car or public transport, but you can find the exact figures on the website of the tax office.
Wow, Kati, this is all great news. I thought I'd lose all deduction without a car.
Mm.
Speaking of cars, can I still claim this transport deduction if I use my own car for business, if my wife gives back?
Okay. For your business, the deduction for using your own car based on the kilometer log is best financially. So it's better to claim that whenever possible. However, there are situations where this transport deduction can be relevant. So the transport deduction we are talking about today. For example, if you use both your unicycle and your car with white plates for business, you can claim the transport deduction for the unicycle trips, and you can claim the car usage deduction for the car trips. Another example is that if you traveled the same route with your car 60 times in the past 12 months, the 61st trip isn't considered a business trip in your kilometer log, but you can claim the transport deduction for that trip. So that's, again, a good news. The key is you can only claim one type of deduction for a trip, either this one or the other. But if you can't claim the car usage deduction, you might still be able to claim the transport deduction.
Got it. Thanks a lot for explaining this transport deduction. I'm sure our listeners will find this information useful.
Well, you are welcome. I'm glad if we can help. The transport deduction affects many people, primarily employees, but also business owners who travel far for work without having a car, using other means of transport. So it's worth taking advantage of this opportunity.
Indeed. Dear listener, thank you for your joining us today. If you have any questions, you are welcome to send it in. You can find our contact information in the show notes. Today's episode was sponsored by Cool Accounts APS. If you want to take your business to the next level, then contact us through our website www.accounts.cool. And for up-to-date and useful information, follow our Facebook page. We wish you a successful week.